Hello, and welcome back to Indie Cult Horror. This time around, we're looking at an interview with Russ Streiner. This interview is from Chiller Theater in 2003, and Russ Streiner, if you don't remember by name, that means you probably should rewatch Night of the Living Dead, because Russ Streiner is the very memorable character of Johnny, and he was also the producer of the film. And like everyone who worked on Night of the Living Dead, I'm sure he did many other tasks, because everyone who worked on that film wore many hats. Very importantly, Russ Streiner is part of the original Image 10. That means he was not only just an investor in putting the company together, but he was also a hands-on participant. Image 10, if you're not familiar, was a collaboration, a group of people who were working in film industry, but not the feature film industry in the Pittsburgh area. So these are people who were working in commercials, they were working in advertising and industrial films. They were doing short segments for television, local ad campaigns, things along those lines, but had yet to make the jump into features. So knowing that they had the skills and the materials needed to make a feature film, they decided then to band together and form this limited group. And that group would go on to make Night of the Living Dead. Once Image 10 dissolved, he did pair quite often with Russo on many of his film projects in various ways, from acting to associate producing and helping in those manners. Streiner also, in his partnerships with Russo, was eventually part of Russo's school in the Pittsburgh area in collaboration with other colleges. So he was doing teaching and mentoring with those programs. Streiner was also working closely with the Pittsburgh Film Commission. He sat on the board at times, and he's been very active in helping Pittsburgh to maintain a film industry of its own. That means working to get feature films made in Pittsburgh, working with local production companies, all these types of things. He's very active in the film scene there. Today, he is very active in the fandom of Night of the Living Dead. He's very front and center in events. Particularly in the 50th anniversary, Streiner was very available to fans, and along with his brother Gary, was definitely helping to make the celebration of the 50th year something special. You can definitely tell that he's someone who has pride in what he's done, his accomplishments, and, in being part of such an iconic film. So I hope you enjoy this video with Russ Streiner from Chiller Theater 2003.
Hi, my name is Russ Streiner. I played Johnny in the horror classic Night of the Living Dead. My real name is Russ Streiner.
First question. In the original Image 10 group, what was your role?
In the original Image 10 group, George and I were business partners in a company called the Latent Image. I was the president of Image 10. Image 10 was made up of George Romero, John Russo, and 7 of our other friends, including my brother Gary, who just recently completed a documentary with Jerry Seinfeld called Comedian.
How did you end up acting in Night?
That's kind of an interesting story. We got closer and closer to the shooting time. At that time, you have to remember that we were all doing various jobs. We were producing, directing, editing, running the camera, gathering props. So it got closer and closer to shooting time, and we didn't have a Johnny. And George said, well, why don't you just be Johnny? So I was there, I was available. So it was not a tribute to my acting ability, it was more an act of convenience that I ended up playing Johnny.
What was an average day on the set when you were filming Night like?
They were very long days. We had 30 days of actual shooting broken into 2 15-day segments. And the days were very long, and of course, obviously, most of it took place at night.
Before working on Night of the Living Dead, were you a fan of horror films?
Not really. I am now a fan of horror films, but horror was not a big genre to me. I was always a fan of Hitchcock. I was a big fan, and still a big fan, of the 30s and 40s screwball Hollywood comedies, that kind of thing.
How does it feel to be part of something that was so influential to so many people, though?
It's really an interesting feeling for me. In some ways, it's almost like Johnny is someone else, but when I come to something like a horror convention and see the numbers of people that want to talk to me or want to get my autograph because I played Johnny, that's pretty interesting to me. But I also think it's important for those of us who put the movie together. We made a movie. We made a pretty successful, scary movie, but the fans made it a classic, so we can never lose sight of that.
So do you like having times like this where you can meet your fans and
Oh yeah,
be close
always.
How about Return of the Living Dead? What was your role in that?
John Russo, who is over here, Rudy Ritchie, and I wrote the screenplay for Return of the Living Dead and then sold it to a group. They offered to buy it from us. Dan O'Bannon ended up directing the film, but we wrote the screenplay.
And that was more of what they used as the basis for the rewrite of the film that became it.
Right.
What about the 30th anniversary, Night of the Living Dead?
30th anniversary, I worked with John Russo on 30th anniversary. We decided to put some additional scenes into the movie. There has always been a copyright cloud over the original Night of the Living Dead. And one of the reasons we did the 30th anniversary edition was to hopefully clarify some of those copyright clouds.
So that was more or less the reason behind it.
Right.
There's been a lot of negative fan reaction from that, just for the scenes in particular that were added. How did you feel about that?
Well, you never like negative reactions, but if you're going to be a filmmaker, along with the good comes the bad, and if people don't like what you do, they let you know, as well as when they do like what you do, they let you know that.
In your
However,
kind of,
I don't take any of it personally.
most of your horror film work revolves around night and working with that. Have you ever wanted to work on other films or other projects that...
You mean mainstream films?
Or even just more independent films? Is there anything that you...
I do that every day. I'm basically a documentary maker. That's what I do today to earn a living. I'm a documentary maker.
And you and John Russo usually work together still?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It all depends on the project.
Well, I think I think we're getting kind of loud, but that was very helpful.
Are you satisfied that you got what you needed?
That was very helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks again for tuning in to Indie Cult Horror. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and I hope you'll come back. We'll have many more episodes and many more interviews that come from the vaults here at Indie Cult Horror. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.